The worst capitalists in history.
Breastfeeding is not an easy task, and not every mother is capable of it, which is why baby formula was made. At least that was the original intent. In the 1950s, though, this changes in a major way that ends up causing the deaths of millions of babies. Formula companies start to incentivize hospitals and physicians into giving all the mothers of newborns one-day samples by offering them grants and subsidizing their equipment. This is way before the internet and during a time when a doctor's word is unquestioned, so to patients this is seen as an endorsement of formula over breastfeeding. From the formula company Abbott, we are in effect turning the physician into, quote, a low-pressure salesman. They even sent saleswomen into hospitals disguised as nurses. These mothercraft or milk nurses would lie to patients saying, sure, breastfeeding is best if you supplement with X, Y, or Z, or you can just buy our product. This marketing strategy proved to be extremely effective. Surveys found that 68% of mothers born between 1911 and 1915 breastfed, while only 38% of mothers born in the early 1940s breastfed. Other industries quickly took notice of this effective strategy and started implementing themselves, including drug companies and cigarette. And in the endless conquest for profit, these companies quickly turned their gaze to a new market, low-income countries. Using milk nurses and advertising campaigns that focused on shame and fear, these companies were able to convince women in regions like Africa that breastfeeding was inferior. Here's a jolly jingle that Borden made. Again, the marketing strategy proved extremely effective, and in some regions like Nigeria, surveys found that up to 70% of women began bottle feeding. The problem is that breast milk is sterile and formula is not, and in many of these regions, up to 60% of households lack clean water. Malnutrition and infection ran rampant, and in one region, Dr. Alan Cunningham noted that nearly every baby he treated was fed formula. Published 2 studies showing that babies that were not breastfed were twice as likely to become ill. It was 16 times as likely for those not fed within the first 2 months. The lapse in time of breastfeeding, as well as anxiety from something called the letdown reflex, can cause milk to dry up. So many of the women in these regions had no choice but to continue using formula despite it causing illness. Because these women made so little and formula was so expensive, they would dilute it way past the recommended rate. A study in Indonesia showed that only a quarter of women above average income diluted anywhere near the recommended rate. Those that were poorer would resort to things such as rice milk or even sugared tea. Despite the skyrocketing infant mortality rate, these formula companies would continue their campaigns for profit. And in 1981, the world market sales for formula reached $2 billion per year. Eventually, authorities started regulating these companies and buckling down on their practices, and within 4 years, the mortality rate dramatically dropped. The infant mortality rate for acute infection dropped 81%. It was estimated that more than 1.5 million babies died each year from these campaigns. In 2018, the World Health Assembly voted yes on a resolution to not allow formula companies to say that it is better than breastfeeding. The Trump administration threatened to withhold foreign aid from any country that backed this resolution. Capitalism kills.